Vanakkam Dorai and everyone. Wonderful to be with you today. Shaya Tritiya in Asia today, right? So we have that here tomorrow, auspicious day. So let's see what we can do here. We need to share the screen. Okay. And it's easier to see the screen if I put on my glasses. I was wondering why the screen was a little unclear. Okay, so that's there. Then we move this over here. And we are ready to go. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadi Tamastu Mabit Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And as you would expect, we have the Yoga Sutras. And we are still in Chapter 2, Sadhana. Chapter 1, as you'll recall, gave us general principles. Said Abhyasa and Vairagya. Abhyasa is consistent practice day to day. You're really focused on being regular. Like if you were studying dance, you have to be regular or you're going to get really scolded by your teacher. So Abhyasa, regular daily practice, is what he said in chapter 1, but he didn't give us any practices. He saved those for chapter 2. So we've gotten some of the practices so far. We got the 3 practices of Kriya Yoga, but there's a lot more coming up in the remaining verses. So that's where we are. Oh, verse 18. The perceivable world characterized by illumination, activity, and inertia, consisting of the elements and the senses, exists to provide both experience and liberation. While the sage uses the terms prakasha, kriya, and sthiti, he is clearly referencing the 3 gunas: brightness, sattva, activity, rajas, and inertia, tamas. So the world is functioning in these 3 ways, different parts of it in different ways. Everything perceivable refers to outer manifestation, the elements, bhuta, and the senses, but does not include all of prakriti, omitting the subtle elements, mahabhuta, the mind, manas, buddha, and ahankara, and unmanifest prakriti, avyakta. In Siddhanta, God Shiva creates the world so that the soul may learn, grow, and mature through experience, not for its own sake, but for its power to slowly purify sufficiently to receive the grace known as liberation. So Patanjali says experience. The world is there for experience and liberation, but he doesn't say what type of experience. You know, in Saiva Siddhanta, that is what happens when you swallow without thinking about swallowing. It doesn't swallow right. Experience. So what type of experience? Saiva Siddhanta says, well, we're maturing the soul. In other words, Someone can't just rush up to you, up to me and say, I'm 65 years old and I want to realize the self. In the remaining years of this life, I've done enough things in the world. It doesn't work that way. We need to mature the soul. That can take many, many lives. It's a slow process, just like a slow growing plant. You can't rush it. So that is what living dharmically, doing our sadhana, the world provides us a place to do that, and that matures the soul. We have to be mature enough to realize Parashiva. Most people, the soul is not mature enough to do so. So that gives us a few ideas on experience. The world is there for our experience and eventually our liberation. This one is technical, and it's okay if you forget it as soon as I read it. But anyway, going through them all. The levels of the gunas are the particularized, the unparticularized, the differentiate and the undifferentiate. So that's like taking our 36 tattvas and breaking them into categories. So for some reason, he's done this. This shloka engenders profound discussion among commentators as it outlines the basic categories or evolutes arising from the primordial interaction of the gunas with prakriti. The four levels of gunas are Vishesha, the particularized, so comprising the 5 elements, 5 organs of actions, 5 sense organs, and the manas. So that makes sense. It's the world and how we perceive the world is the lowest level. Avishesha, the unparticularized, tanmatras, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell, and ahankara. So the actual impressions that get into our mind, and our ego is the next category. Nothing physical there. Lingamatra, the differentiate, buddhi, intellect. So the intellect is the highest of all of this group so far. Alingani, the undifferentiate, which is prakriti itself, mula prakriti. Primordial matter or nature, the way I think of it is, take a ball of clay, before you make something with it, that's what this is. It's all the matter together, but it hasn't made anything yet. These evolutes constitute the 25 tattvas of the Sankhya philosophical system. Yoga philosophy and Sankhya philosophy are complementary. Okay. Thank you. And a beautiful quote from Gurudeva. God, Shiva, created us, created the earth and all things upon it, animate and inanimate. Created time and gravity, the vast spaces and the uncounted stars. He created night and day, joy and sorrow, love and hate, birth and death. He created the gross and the subtle, this world and the other worlds. There are 3 worlds of existence, the physical, subtle, and causal, termed Bhuloka, Antarloka, and Shiva Loka. So it's always important to remember the second world is called Antarloka. It's not called Devaloka. Devaloka is the highest part of it. It's Antar, it's within, Antarloka. Creator of all, Shiva himself is uncreated. As Supreme Mahadeva, Shiva wills into manifestation all souls in all form, issuing them from himself, like light from a fire or waves from an ocean. Rishis describes this perpetual process as the unfoldment of 36 tattvas, stages of manifestation, from the Shiva tattva, Prada Shakti, and Nada to the 5 elements. Creation is not the making of a separate thing, but an emanation of himself. Lord Shiva creates, constantly sustains the form of his creations and absorbs them back into himself. Thank you, Gurudeva. Verse 20. Ever pure, awareness is simply seeing, witnessing the mind's cognitions. So this is emphasizing the fact that awareness doesn't change. It's the witness. Similar to a movie projector, for example. Movie projector, the film is moving, but you need the projection light. So the light never changes. It's the film that has the images. So awareness is like the light. It's needed for the process to happen, but it's not actually being changed by the process. Awareness is so simple, so pure, so untainted by the things it becomes aware of, even when it is aware of some thought or feeling or energy of the mind, or some impurity, it is not affected by that thing, but remains itself unchanged. Ever pure awareness is simply seeing, witnessing the mind's activities. It is not an entity or experiencer, but the very nature of pure knowing. And Gurudeva's quote, "A devotee who has developed the sub-superconscious area of the mind can sit quietly as a being of pure cosmic energy and observe the many thoughts of the mind without being affected by them. The intuitive knowing that we are pure awareness, the soul, and not the thoughts that we think, gives the security to move from concentration into deeper meditation. The sub-superconscious state gives that inherent feeling of inner stability, the feeling of being stationary or centered within the realms of the thinking mind." Verse 21. By its very nature, the scene exists only for that purpose. Patanjali conveys a profound truth in this brief sutra. The soul of Purusha is the aware being for whom the entire universe exists. Prakriti, the universe and all that can be known, has but one purpose: to fulfill Purusha by providing both experience and liberation, as explained in Sutra 218. The world has no meaning unless it is perceived by Purusha. It exists to be seen, and only then does it become real and meaningful. And Gurudeva, the entire range of human expression, whether intellectual achievement, social and cultural interaction, creativity, and psychological states of mind, instinctive desires, or lofty yogic cognitions, is but pure experience. Powerful living lessons by which the soul learns, matures, and progresses nearer to God. Nicely said. The soul learns because it's learned, it matures, and because it's matured, it's getting closer to God. Experience is governed by karma and the divine laws of dharma, softened through God's grace. Verse 22. Although what is seen ceases to exist for one whose purpose has been fulfilled, meaning someone who's achieved moksha, it still exists as the shared experience of others. This is like a philosophical point. if a tree falls and there's no one to hear the sound, is there sound? Something like that is Western philosophy. So this is saying, yes, there is sound. For the self-realized soul, Purusha is all that exists as the grosser energies of Prakriti vanish. Subsumed in the higher, the awakened one claims Sarvam Shivamayam, all is Shiva. However, there remain other souls for whom Prakriti, the seen, is real and needed. And Gurudeva. As we move through the mind stays the same, just as the world stays the same as the traveler moves from city to city. Paris does not vanish when he enters New Delhi. It is still there. Others remain in the city and he can return. Fear does not disappear from the mind when we are blissfully fearless. Others still experience it. Our awareness is simply moved to a more refined area. And we have the second topic today, path to Shiva. Who is Lord Murugan? Appropriate for our song that introduced me there. How would you answer that question? Who is Lord Murugan? There's no one correct answer, of course. Murugan is the god of religion and yoga. Okay, religion, two things, religion and yoga. He is the second son of Shiva, born of his divine mind. Ganesha, of course, is the first. His electric power awakens spiritual wisdom to propel souls onward in their evolution to Shiva's feet. So that's the Kundalini. Also known as Kartikeya, Kumara, Skanda, Shanmuganada, and Subramanya. He is worshipped not only by Hindus, but by Buddhists as well in China, Japan, and other countries. Interesting, in my longer presentation on Murugan, talks more about the Buddhism, says, it gives the name Kumara and says, Kumara, he's the protector of the monastery and the teachings. Interesting. Fits right in. Majestically seated on the Manipura chakra, willpower. This red-hued God blesses mankind and strengthens our will when we rise to higher consciousness. How do we do that? Through sadhana and yoga. He brings detachment, willpower, and contentment, and his blessings strengthen our meditations. Lord Murugan carries a veil or spear representing the power to overcome darkness and ignorance. He is the authority behind the king. Nowadays, any government which rules the people, there to see that justice is done and peace prevails. Murugan is especially loved by Tamil Saivites who believe he guides their culture and history. Devotees look to him for healing of the body and mind and for strength to face life's challenges. He is said to love bamboo groves and hilltops, and his vahana is the proud and beautiful peacock. When we connect with Murugan, we have to be ready to change, for he brings a dynamic energy. He inspires penance, such as carrying kavadi during Taipusam, which softens karmas and purifies the mind. When Murugan's blessings come into our life, we become a better person, more kind, disciplined, and spiritual. Many saints and devotees have had visions of Murugan and other gods, but more often we just sense their presence as we feel the warm rays of the sun when our eyes are closed. Next topic, questions sent into satsang@hindu.org. This question comes from a 2016 retreat from the Hindu Students Association of Texas. Why can't people understand our religion? Lots of answers to that. This answer refers to its denominational nature, but you don't have to give that answer. How would you answer that question? Why can't people understand our religion? Certainly, one of the reasons young Hindus often find Hinduism confusing is that Hindu teachings are often presented without reference to the denomination or philosophy they represent. Without reference to the denomination or philosophy they represent. This leads to apparent contradictions when comparing what different teachers or temples state about Hinduism. However, when properly labeled, the source of the contradictions becomes apparent, as for example, contrasting a non-dualistic philosophy to a dualistic one, contrasting the idea of already being God to the idea of becoming God's devoted servant. So we're not, presenters of Hinduism don't label it precisely enough, is what's being said. Simple comparison illustrates the benefit. When it comes to Indian food, the cuisine offered by an Indian restaurant is always part of the sign out front. It's not just an Indian restaurant, right? No one would go in. Indian restaurants offer North Indian or South Indian cuisines, or sometimes both. Some are even more specific, such as offering a chettinad or tandoori cuisine. Some restaurants specifically state they're vegetarian. In all cases, even before going in the door, you know what type of Indian food is being offered. Also, the fact that there is a great variety in Indian cuisines is not considered problematic, but rather a positive quality. So if someone says, why can't Hinduism be simpler? You can say, well, would you want to eat rice and dal every day and make Indian cuisine simpler? No, we like cuisine to be varied. So nothing wrong with religion being varied. An example of a properly labeled statement from an ISKCON website. Yes, they actually can label things properly. Belief: Krishna is eternal, all-knowing, omnipresent, all-powerful, and all-attractive. He is the seed-giving father of all living beings, and he is the sustaining energy of the entire cosmic creation. Keeps going. ISKCON belongs to the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So that's the point. They're Gaudiya Vaishnava. So Vaishnava, you know the Supreme Being is going to be Vishnu. Gaudiya, you know they're dualists. So the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So Krishna is the Supreme Being, a form of Vishnu, and is always separate from you. So that's what you can tell just from the name of the Sampradaya. So it's a good point. When people get confused about Hinduism, is perhaps what they're reading or hearing is not being properly labeled, and therefore they don't understand why it contradicts something they previously learned. Reminds me of something I was watching. I was watching YouTube by Ramakrishna Swami from Chicago, giving a series of talks on the 4 yogas, wanting to learn something from the Ramakrishna point of view. And he explained Hinduism. He said, if you're asked a question, the answer is always yes, but no. Meaning Hinduism has such a diversity that what's true in one sampradaya is not going to be true, at least in one other sampradaya. So yes, but no. Om.